Happy Easter, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be with you live today, but I am happy for the opportunity that I can make this recording from Mexico to provide for the service on Easter Sunday. I continue to help sort out the bureaucratic entanglements of arranging my daughter's marriage here in Mexico, and I do have to admit it's been pretty frustrating to keep extending my time here, but it actually has been wonderful to spend so much time meeting her new family. Still, I have to admit, I'm looking forward to getting back to some sense of normalcy in Wisconsin soon. Today, from my reading, I bring you the wisdom of Victoria Weinstein, titled Being the Resurrection. The stone has got to be rolled back from the tomb again and again every year. Roll up your sleeves. He is not coming back, you know. He is not coming back unless it is we who rise for him. We who lay healing hands on the reviled and the rejected like he did on his behalf. We who rage for righteousness in his insistent voice. We who love the sinner even knowing that the sinner is no further off than our own heartbeat. He will not be back to join us at the table, to share God's extravagant banquet, God's love feast. All are invited, come as you are. And so it is, you and I who must feast for him, must say the grace and break the bread and pass it to the left, and dish up the broiled fish or pour the wine and pass it to the right, and treat each one so tenderly as though just this morning she or he made the personal effort to make it back from heaven or from hell, but certainly from death to be by our side. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day so that if he did by some amazing feat come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, "This is what I meant." And we could say, "It took us a long time, but we finally figured it out." Oh, let us live to make it so. We are the resurrection and the life. Rolling back the stone. Some of you may have met my partner, Scott Barron. Scott currently works with the Darjun Foundation based in Green Bay, which works throughout Northeast Wisconsin, helping men and women struggling with the issues of mental health, alcoholism, and drug addiction, primarily opioids. Darjun is funded by a statewide grant, but like any nonprofit, strains to make ends meet in the difficult work of helping the troubled souls they meet on a path to stability and a more successful and productive life. Scott and his peers are often called into the emergency departments of partnering hospitals in overdose situations, often in the middle of the night, to comfort patients and offer a year-long ongoing relationship of friendship and support. Well, some weeks ago, Scott came to me in my role as a minister to ask if there was any way the congregations I serve might be willing to help one of his clients. He needed a ride to and from Green Bay and Racine, where he was mandated to make a court appearance in reference to an earlier charge of drug possession. Scott works with many of these grappling addicts, with varying degrees of success, as you can imagine, but every now and then he meets one or another in whom he believes wholeheartedly. And this 37-year-old young man, who we have named Kyle, was one who had touched him deeply. Kyle had no job, no home, no money, and was sleeping in a girlfriend's old car. He was committed to staying clean this time, but had none of the tools or supports imperative to navigating such a difficult path. I agreed to help in any way I could, and together we decided a round-trip bus ticket was probably the best course. Scott asked if there might be some discretionary funding available for such a small public assistance, and I said there was. We'll figure it out. To get Kyle to a 1:45 court appearance in Racine required a 6:30 a.m. bus from Green Bay to Milwaukee, switching there to a second bus and a similar return trip that would only arrive back in Green Bay at 8:45 p.m. the same day. Well, our alarm went off at 5 a.m., although I really hadn't slept well all night. It was one of those nights where that'll be the day that the alarm clock doesn't work or I set it wrong and we might miss the bus completely. In fact, I think I got up at 4:45. But as I was getting ready, it kind of occurred to me that Kyle wouldn't be able to purchase any food or drink. So while I was getting something for myself, I also made him a sandwich and included an apple and a bottle of water and a thermos of hot coffee. We met him on time at the bus station, and after speaking with him briefly, I agreed there was apparently much more to this young man than his story might imply. Kyle thanked me and boarded the bus. And as it drove away, so did we, back to our apartment. And as I lay in bed trying now to fall asleep again, I was thinking of Victoria Weinstein's words and how Scott and I had just, in our own small way, rolled back a stone for this man, offering him a chance at a resurrection of his own. Well, this is the kind of Easter story that's well grounded in Unitarian Universalist theology. It's all about our second principle. We work to bring justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Now, as I've said before, this second principle is the action-oriented result of the first principle that we quote all the time, upholding the inherent worth and dignity of everyone. It's an intellectual exercise to just say, yes, of course I would agree to upholding the inherent worth and dignity of everyone. But it's something else entirely to roll up your sleeves and jump into the second principle to create justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. It's the practical application of the first principle. The Easter morning story ultimately is about conquering death. It's the story of Jesus of Nazareth, whom we already know from the gospel stories as a perfect human being, the epitome of inherent worth and dignity, who was martyred and his body sealed up in a dark cave, which is the epitome of injustice and lack of compassion. And the story continues by telling us that Jesus descended into hell and then rose again 3 days later, symbolically conquering death, despair, disease, and desperation by leaving the dark cave behind. Classically, Unitarian Christians view this story as a victory over the depravity of humankind. That humans could have done such bad things to a perfect human, that this is a victory over that Jesus, who represents our greatest potential, was able to overcome that dark side and step into the light of resurrection and possibility. But there's a little bit of a twist here that I hope you caught when the kids were reading the story or telling the story for you. It takes a community. Jesus didn't do this all by himself. It takes a community ultimately to be released from the dark cave. Jesus needed help. There was an earthquake, right? Or I learned the story that the angel rolled back the stone, but maybe angels make earthquakes, I don't know. But the point is that his help was supernatural, otherworldly, and he didn't do it himself. Well, Victoria Weinstein brings us back to our theology in being the resurrection. And in there she says Unitarian Universalists don't rely on outside supernatural forces to save us. We believe in our own agency. We believe our faith calls us to bring heaven to earth and not wait for the hereafter. We're called to bring justice, equity, and compassion to earth. We are called to be the earthquake, to be the angel that rolls away the stone. Kyle has spent much of his life in a metaphorical dark cave, and my purchase of a bus ticket was just removing one small obstacle. But it all supports his movement into the light and greater possibility. Theologically, for us, it brings him to our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Ultimately, Kyle has to decide what provides him with meaning: substance abuse or having the kind of relationship he longs for with those he loves. These are the challenges members of our own communities face. The example given here, the opioid crisis, as you may or may not be aware, is devastating neighborhoods throughout Wisconsin, the U.S., and the world. But it is one of the many important crises facing our fellow citizens, our friends, and perhaps even our own families. Small acts, like a $60 bus ticket from a stranger, can make a very large difference to someone endeavoring to overcome their darkness. And as Scott has often said, for the clients he takes on, it is often the simplest acts of kindness, at a time when their own friends and families have turned their backs, which can make the truest difference of all. Somebody cares. Somebody cares. Can we be that miracle? Can we model grace and compassion? Can we participate in acts as small as a bus ticket and a sandwich to show some depleted soul that with the help of angels, large stones can possibly be rolled back, and a rebirth, a resurrection may lie ahead? I know many of us are deeply involved in acts of charity, trying to roll back stones one at a time in our own way, quietly in the background. You've heard me say it before, but I would like to challenge us to do more collectively as fellowships. Because then this Easter story comes to life in the communities within which we exist. Our fellowship becomes collectively known as angels who can roll back stones. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day, so that if he did, by some amazing feat, come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, "This is what I meant." And we could say, "It took us a long time, but we finally figured it out. We finally figured out how we could roll back the stone." Oh, let us live to make it so. We are the resurrection and the life. Amen.